moments. So thank you all for joining us. My name is Amy Vaughn, and I am the owner and chief empowerment officer of Together Digital. We are a national networking association of women who work in digital marketing and advertising. We have members nationwide, about 500 across the country, and we love to do anything and everything we can to help support, empower, and yes, even times energize one another. We have been doing a wonderful partnership with Lindsay here, who is going to be our host for this workshop. We've been partnering with her and Google for a whole series of workshops. So if you haven't had the chance to look at some of our past workshops, I highly recommend you take a look at them. In a few moments here, when I stop talking, I will drop them into the chat. So you can go back and watch those. However, if you want to learn more about Together Digital, you can look us up at togetherindigital.com. I can talk and type at the same time. Watch me do this. Really, I will. Togetherindigital.com. There you go. It's in the chat. If you want to learn more about us, you can do so there. But I'm really glad that all of you decided to show up today and take some time to learn how to optimize your energy, because it is an important aspect of what we do and can possibly get done. So Lindsay, thank you so much for being here again and hosting a very relevant topic and workshop for us.
Absolutely no problem. I am unmuted, right? I'm so used to being muted accidentally.
Oh,
okay, good. Hey everyone, hey Val. There's a few faces in here I recognize as well, so it's nice to see y'all. And yeah, we are here trying to kind of soup each other up, and we're gonna have a conversation about optimizing energy. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. But before we get started, I would love for everyone in the chat to not just tell us where you are, but I want to know, what do you think is causing your energy to not be optimized? This is a, what do we call it? A shame-free and judgment-free zone. Yeah. So feel free to say, I am my own worst enemy / my children, husband, fiance, my house itself, my neighbors, whatever you want to put in there. I want to know. I personally feel like I currently am probably my own reason why my energy is. I am a people pleaser. Oh my, can you believe that? I am totally not that person, right? Like, no one thinks that Lindsay is a people pleaser. I am. It's an emotional problem, just like everybody else has. And so, oh yes, diet, meaning like the food that you put in your mouth. That is a big one. So we're going to talk about, yes, Rosalind, doing all the things. And I know Rosalind be doing all the things. And so doing all the things. And you know, what's fun is that, like, in the middle of doing all the things, you want to be doing a good portion of them. And then when you're done, you're like, I am so tired. Why did I say yes to all that stuff? Yes, I do also know that. So we're going to talk about energy. We're going to talk about kind of measuring your own energy and kind of looking at your surroundings and what's going on in your life and trying to figure out where the kind of energy vampires are. I think there's a different term for it in the workshop, but you get the idea. I'm Lindsay, as Amy mentioned. I'm Lindsay. I'm the digital coach for Ohio, but you can call me your personal digital coach for wherever you are, because that's the honest truth, right? And I am also a business owner myself, and I am an educator. I work for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program here in Northeast Ohio. So dear God, I have like 4 jobs and I love every single one of them. And I don't want to not do any of them. I have to figure out how to make it work, right? And on top of that, of course, I'm planning a wedding, because who doesn't have enough to do? Me. And so we're going to talk about these 3 topics: balancing, managing your mind, and then mastering your time. So as you note here, time is the last thing we're going to talk about, mostly because we all have the same amount of time in a day as Beyonce, as they all say. And that is not to say that we should be doing more, because that is absolutely not true. The reason why Beyonce can do all this stuff is because she has about 15 helpers for herself, her personal helping team. And so not that of her business, that's a whole separate conversation. And so we're not trying to be Beyonce, we are just trying to be ourselves. But the time factor is accurate. We do all have the same amount of time. And so we're going to talk about mastering that time that we do have, okay? So I don't know about y'all, but this resonates with me. It's so funny, the idea of like working nonstop, typing with both hands. As Amy was saying earlier, I'm trying to talk and type at the same time. And like our brains are not supposed to do that. If you feel like this looks a little bit too much like you're in the right place. Okay, you're in the right place. Let's balance our energy. So what I love to think about is this. Time is finite, meaning that we all have the exact same amount of it. It is what it is. It exists. But energy, on the other hand, is a completely different story. Energy is absolutely not finite. And energy is your ability to do the work. It's a thing that like makes you able to do the things that you're able to do. It comes from 4 places. So for us, I think what Amy typed into the chat a while ago, and so what some of y'all are typing into the chat about your thing, this is it: body, emotions, mind, and spirit. So we have those 4 areas that we need to pay attention to if we want to manage our energy. And I will preface this entire conversation by saying, the truth is that you will be unbalanced in these areas on a regular basis. Sometimes your body will be the thing that is dragging you into the pits of hell, and everything else is fine. I know for me, that has been the case for the past 2 years. My body has been rebelling against me constantly. And my emotions have been mostly high. My mind, my spirit were in line, but my body was not participating with the rest of them. And so when it wasn't, I just had to deal with it. It wasn't that I could change it. I had to figure out how to manage when my body wasn't doing what I needed it to do. And I have had other times in my life where my emotions or my mind were the thing that were pulling me in an opposite direction of where I wanted to go. And I had to figure out how to make those things work for me. Okay. So that's kind of how we're going to look at this whole thing, is that it's not one or the other. It's not everything has to be high or nothing works. That's not it. The truth is that we're going to have some things that are off balance sometimes. It's more about knowing how to manage them, right? So we're going to try to figure out how we can enjoy my goal, enjoy most of our life, enjoy it, and expand your energy and renew it wherever you can. And yes, there are some rituals and behaviors that you can install for yourself that are going to help you get there. Now, the people who are here who've been in other workshops with us before, I'm looking through the list of people, and some of you are probably like, where is the mention of Google in here somewhere? There isn't really, but I do have an energy audit that I have prepped and ready for you. It's in the chat right now. If you can't, it's okay. You can come back to it later. Check the link, click that link that I just dropped into the chat, and it's going to open up a spreadsheet. If you're on your phone, it might not make you copy it, but you do need to make a copy. And in that spreadsheet, it has a few questions for you. And this is what the audit looks like. It's a really, really good audit because it helps you to think about those 4 areas. And then it also kind of gives you a score in these areas for yourself. So let me see if I still have it in the chat. I do. So let's make a copy. Y'all know I can't do it without the show and tell. I have to do show and tell. So now I have the energy audit here, and I look at this body situation. And when I said earlier, being very intentional, some of us might want to even think about asking different questions. The beautiful thing about this is that it has the ability for you to edit it. So if this is something that you maybe want to do with yourself on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, you might want to even edit some of these questions to be more specific to your journey. What I mean by that is I don't regularly get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, or often wake up feeling tired. If your standard is actually 6 to 7, you can go ahead and change that to 6 to 7. Research shows 6 to 7 hours is actually not that bad. There's a lot of people who thrive on that. That's great. If that's where you live and that's your thriving zone, that's fine. And if your thriving zone is more like 8 to 9, be honest with yourself and know that. And mind you, this can also change throughout your periods of your life, right? So there are times in your life where you will require 9 hours of sleep because your body needs it and it's going to take it, and you might as well just give it to it. And then there are other times in your life where 6 hours feels overly abundant almost. So figure out kind of where you are and what that looks like for yourself, and adjust this spreadsheet accordingly. And then the same thing with some of these other questions, like I frequently skip breakfast, or I settle for something that's less than particularly helpful. If you do intermittent fasting, this question is a little silly, right? So if you were doing intermittent fasting, the question might reverse and say, I frequently break my fast before I mean to because I feel overly hungry. Right. Now that is something, because if you're feeling too hungry, as someone who has intermittently fasted a lot, if you're feeling very hungry and you're supposed to be fasting, it's probably because you're not nourishing yourself during your unfasted time. And so you want to be thinking about that. That is something that you're going to give yourself a low score on. So you guys get the idea, right? So these questions are let's call them a jumping off point for negotiation, for us to think more critically about our bodies, our emotions, our minds, and our spirits. This one here, number 18, there is a significant gap, or there are significant gaps between what I say is important in my life and how I actually live. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I have experienced the drain that living out of alignment can have on you, right? So if you are doing something on a daily basis that isn't what you actually are supposed to be doing, and you know that, it can really eat you alive. And so look at these questions, and I want you to think through them. And again, some of them you might have to modify in order to make them fit a little bit better with your actual life. But I do want everyone to go through this audit and actually be intentional about it. So when you are looking at your audit, your results are actually going to kind of end up like this. So you might want to take a picture of the screen if you're not on your phone. So if you're on a computer, and if you are on your phone, take a screenshot. Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't matter. If you're on your phone, you can do a screenshot. But either way, capture this little score key. So the idea is that you want to look at what your total score is. And if your total score is between 17 and 20, it means you're out. Like you are tapped out, tank is empty. 13 to 16 is imminent energy crisis, which again, you might want to think about taking this when you're starting to feel yourself off kilter. Significant energy deficient, moderate energy deficient, and then number 5 and below, fully energized. Now I am, because I'm a smart person, assuming that you are likely not going to take this quiz or this assessment when you are fully energized. It is more likely that you're going to come back to this tool, and I want you to call it a tool. We are going to come back to this tool when you need it, like when you need to assess where your energy is. That's why it's called an energy audit. So we save this audit, name it something appropriate for yourself. Now that you have it, you can actually name it whatever you want. So I'm going to name mine so that we can see it. Energy audit. I always label things with my initials if they're just for me. And then that way I know that it's my document. So LS energy audit, so that I know that it's for me. And then again, for those categories, full of energy in that or out of energy in that category, or fully energized in that category. Again, you may have imbalance, which is the reason why it's a really good idea to see what your category number is. So you might have where your spirit is high, it's a 1. You have a 1 on your spirit score. And that is, again, the opposite of what you would expect, so that we're clear. The lower numbers are the good numbers. So if you're in the lower end, that means that you are fully energized and you're feeling great. But if your body is like me, your body was giving you a hard time, then you might be at a 5 in your body category and at a 1 in your emotion category. Just paying attention to those things. Okay. Now, know your own energy. Please, to thine own self be true, and all that. For yourself, you might want to be thinking about the amount of the things on this screen. So the amount of sleep you are getting, the amount of right foods. And when we say right foods, we mean right foods for you. So before we started in talking, Amy and I were both chatting about how we are both gluten-free. But Amy is dairy-free, and I am by no means dairy free. Whether I should be or not, that is a separate conversation, but I am absolutely not dairy free. And so because I eat lots of cheese and occasional ice cream, I consider those to be perfectly right foods for me, but mostly because I also eat them in moderation. We are a mostly vegan household. So I eat them in moderation, right? But there are, oh, I love that, Amy, learning your trigger foods. This is what I'm talking about here. Eating the right foods for you is an appropriate thing. So if you are allergic to nightshades, if you're allergic to anything, you shouldn't be eating that. But there are some of us, those commercials where it says, if you're allergic to Xeljanz, then don't take it. And everyone goes, why would anyone take it if they're allergic to it? I have literally heard people say that. And I'm like, well, apparently you have never been told that you can't eat something that you really like because you're allergic to it. And so, because I have seen people try to power through an allergy because they really wanted something that bad, right? So don't, don't do that to yourself. That's the idea, right? Plenty of exercise. Again, this is going to be based on your own self and your own body. For me, I've currently been doing Pilates. If you guys in the chat, if you could tell me if you have a regular exercise type thing that you do, go ahead and put it in the chat, whatever that looks like for you. I have a row machine just out of frame that you can't see. I think it literally has dust on it. But my Pilates class, on the other hand, no dust. I go to it every single week. I go multiple times a week. So I found something that I actually really love to do. I love that yoga. I really want to start doing yoga again, but yoga makes me really sleepy. And so I have to do it at home. I can't do it in a studio. I've been laying on the floor taking a nap. And then I also love hiking. We're big hikers in this household, but the weather lately has been very hiking prohibitive because it has not stopped raining for like 2 weeks. Literally 2 weeks. It has rained every day. But anyway, taking breaks. So for those of us who have really, really serious schedules, so you, me, Val, Monica, all the people, I can just name people. Sue, I'm sure you have a busy schedule. What you do want to intentionally do is take breaks. Now, this is every 90 to 120 minutes. I encourage you to take them as often as every 30 minutes, especially if you work from home. And that's mostly because one of that plenty of exercise thing is the idea of getting up just from your seat. So if you're working on the couch, it doesn't even matter if you're working on the couch or you're working from bed or you're working at a desk in an office, every half hour or so, get up. Just get up. Not work at your standing desk. If you're at a standing desk, move away from your desk, literally. So even if you're already standing, go somewhere, please. And I would encourage you to do that because it really does it forces us to take mental breaks. So even if you're sitting at your computer, let's say you're me and you think that you want to watch YouTube videos at your computer while you're eating lunch. Unless you have the will of a saint, you have left every other tab open, you left your email open, you left all these things open while you're watching this YouTube video. So what are you seeing the entire time? You're still seeing all those notifications. You're still seeing all those things. You're not really taking a break. Plus you're sitting at your computer. And so I would highly encourage you to actually take real breaks, not fake breaks where you're really just powering through your work. I would rather you take an intentional break and have it be, even if it does have to be every 90 minutes or 120 minutes, but take intentional breaks. Be very intentional. Now, the emotions and the spirit are a lot harder to talk about, but we're going to talk about it. One of the things that I have found very useful in life is expressing appreciation for other people. It is probably one of the most helpful things that you can do is to give people what you need. And so if you yourself are in a low emotional state, one of the best ways to pull yourself out of a low emotional state is to start giving other people what you need. Give them attention, give them compliments, show them appreciation, show acts of love. If you've gone through and read that book about the different love languages, give those things to other people. Because if you can give them to other people, it will pull on your empathy. That really, it almost always lifts you. So Of course, I'm a regular human, and I've been watching this TV show called The Patient on Hulu. Is anyone else watching The Patient? Please don't, if you haven't started yet. It's it's amazing. It's a great show. It's very well acted. And the main character has no empathy. He's a serial killer. That's not a spoiler. It's a part of the show. So, but this is amazing to watch because the therapist in the show's entire job is to help this person develop empathy. The good thing is that the majority of us have it already. We don't usually exercise it though. And so I want us to start exercising it when we need it, right? And then there's another tool that I want you to think about using. And let me see if I can pull it up. I have to pull it up in another window so that I don't share I like sharing things, but I don't want to share my whole life with y'all, like my personal journal. So let me log out of it. The other thing that I love is a software called 750 Words. And it is a journaling software created by writers. And what you do is online, it's private, it's completely private. It's not a blog. No one ever sees it except for you. And you have a little thing at the bottom of the screen, and it's counting your words. And what I do every single morning before I do anything else other than use the bathroom, I sit down and I write 750 words. It's such a little thing. It takes me about 20 minutes if I'm focused. If I'm unfocused, sometimes that's 750 words. By the time I get to like word 350, my brain is off doing other things, like not planning, but like I'm having whole conversations about the thing that I just wrote down in my head. And so it might take me a little bit longer than 20 minutes if I'm highly distracted. But it's also really helpful because it helps me it's almost like an energy audit for myself, an emotional audit for myself every single day. I check in to see how I'm feeling, how I've been doing. And it's also a really good place for me to put things that I do want to track. So as I mentioned, I have had a whole year of, 3 years almost, of physical maladies that have been happening unrelated to COVID, just happened to very highly correspond with it. And I actually started using journaling to track when I started taking new prescriptions, because I wasn't taking any prescriptions before, and I wanted to see how these things were reacting to my body. And so I started just journaling some of these things out, but then in addition, just journaling how I felt when my energy is high, when it is low, all of those types of things, because it really does help me to look back and see if there's any trends. And because that journal, the 750 words, is completely private, it's great because you're not sharing it with anyone but yourself, and you don't have to worry about like a notebook sitting around somewhere in your house that someone might be able to find if you're concerned about that. Like if you have kids, because I know how nosy children are. And so if you have kids, you might not want to have a full out journal that you write, because then you'd have to lock it away. But with 750 words, I can write whatever I want and no one's going to see it but me and anyone that I share it with, which would literally require me sharing it, because you cannot share. It's like the best thing about it. You can't share it. You can't do anything. I'd have to show someone. So it's great. So 750 words, highly encourage it. Now, mental focus. So we talked about your body, your spirit. Now your mental focus. Again, things that we all struggle with. The first thing when we think about mental focus, we want to think about is our mental energy. We want to think about focus. Creating priority lists. So one thing that I'm sure you've all heard is that our brains are very bad containers, essentially. Like we're not meant to hold information in our heads. We're meant to process information with our heads. Now, because we've been taught, especially as women, to any of the dudes in the room, you know I love you, but y'all don't have the same socialization that we have. Women are taught to maintain information in our heads. Like we're walking encyclopedias for other humans. This is the reason why people ask us things like, where are my shoes? Where are your shoes? Shouldn't you know that, right? Like, why am I the person with this information in my head? And it's the reason why is because we've literally been socialized to maintain that sort of mental capacity. The problem is, yes, that cognitive load, that mental load, that's real. And so what I want us to be doing specifically as women is trying as much as humanly possible to relieve our own cognitive load by not keeping things in our head. Write it down. Make a list at the beginning of the day. What's your priority for the day? 3 things, no more than 3 things. You will get more than 3 things done. I promise you. But if you write down the three things that you actually want to accomplish, it will keep you from focusing that back of your brain focus. You know what I'm talking about? We're off in the corner in the back of your head. There's a little blinking light that you're trying to do something else. And this blinking light is maintaining itself because it's trying to keep you reminded of a thing. Write it down, that light will go out. It's amazing. Now, if you write it down somewhere where your brain knows that you'll never see it again, that light will stay on. So this is a good way for you to figure out where to put things. So if you are, I'm a texter. I can text myself stuff and my brain will shut that off hardcore because it knows that I go into my text messages every hour, if not more. And so I know my brain knows I'll see that again. But if I write it on a sheet of random paper, my mama used to do that. I learned that from her, like the back of envelopes. Oh my God. She would write notes on the back end. I'm like, where are you putting that? You're never going to see that again. And so like, it's not because it's going to go in the trash. It's not it at all. It's because she's going to put it in a pile somewhere in a corner and it's never going to see that again. And so you want to be thinking about where you're putting things, but write that priority, write it down. Don't keep it in your head. And then complete the most important thing first. Absolutely first. If it's important to you, it should be done at the top of the day. Again, as women, we tend to prioritize other people's important things before we prioritize our own important things. This is a flaw in the system. It is a glitch in the matrix. We should not be doing that. Now, I know I'm challenging people who have children, and I myself do not have children. I have participated actively in the raising of many children. I literally have gotten kids up to take them to school in the morning, had to make the lunches and do the thing. So when I say I understand what I'm asking you to do, it might seem like an insane thing to prioritize yourself in the morning and have the most important thing you do be the first thing you do. Let's put a caveat on that, okay? Let's say have the most important thing you do after any routine. So if you have like a routine literally inside of your house to get your humans away from you, then do that routine. And then after that, the most important thing of the day needs to be the first thing you do. Okay. That's my little caveat there. Okay. Eat the frog. Yes. Yes. Okay. And then meditation. I personally absolutely love meditation. I go through phases with it. I feel like anybody who is a meditator goes through phases with meditation. For me, I try to meditate for no longer than 5 minutes. And if I'm feeling very frustrated in life, then I might do like 15. But I use an app called Insight Timer. And Insight Timer is fantastic because it has guided meditations, but it also has like self-directed meditation to music. And I love it because it has a timer. And so what I will also do, so I've talked about the idea of taking a break. Sometimes if I'm really having a hard time focusing, I will get my handy dandy earbuds, put them in, and then put an Insight Timer on with the same meditation music that I use and just work. So it's because I used it for meditation first, as soon as I hear the music, my brain tells me it's time to calm down. It says, oh, it's this calm time. And so I can focus. I'm less frazzled. I'm less all over the place because my brain is now trying to just do one thing instead of trying to hold on to all the other things. So you want to be thinking about that mental aspect of what your energy is doing and figure out for yourself, again, this is all highly customized, how to keep those blinking lights that are in the back of your head from being there. If you haven't yet, one of my absolute favorite books for this topic, it was actually written by a nice man named David Allen, and it is called Getting Things Done. Getting Things Done is an absolute classic, and it's called a productivity book, but I think it's more of a you already know this, but you haven't thought about it in a long time book. Like, it's like, you already know that the answer to I need to buy batteries isn't to just try to remember to buy batteries. And in his book, he basically gives you a whole system for never having to try to remember anything. This is not going to decrease your mental capacity. It is going to increase your mental capacity. When you stop trying to hold unnecessary things in your head, it increases the ability for you to actually think and grow and learn. So please, just at all costs for yourself, try to get the stuff that you don't actually need to hold in your head out of your head. Write it down. Please. It doesn't have to be handwritten. It can be however you want it. Like, get it out of your head, okay? Now for spiritual. This one is tied directly to your personal purpose. And spiritual does not mean religious, as I'm sure you all know. Spiritual is about how you feel about yourself, right? And so if you are, like I said earlier, disaligned, meaning that you feel like you need to be doing something different from what you actually are doing, it is going to zap your energy. So one of the best things that we can do for ourselves is to actually do work that matters to us, because doing work that matters to you will give you energy versus doing work that does not matter for you will take your energy away. If you are a business owner, I got another thing I want y'all to tell me in the chat. I want to know, what is something that you know takes energy, an activity that you do that when you do it, you feel completely drained afterwards? Go ahead, write it in the chat. I have a feeling you know what it is. What's that thing that once you do it, you want to go home and sleep for 3 days? Okay. I will tell you what one of my things is that does the opposite. So for me, the opposite of that is teaching. So I can walk into this, I could take a nap for 5 minutes before I jump into one of these workshops and then be here fresh and revived and all that and be just absolutely great, right? This is fantastic. But the opposite for me, that's something that's completely, utterly draining, is social environments with one-on-one conversations. So specifically like networking events where I'm not the person on the stage. Oh my God. If I have to, I'm like, oh, so that's, I think Monica, you wrote the same thing down. Okay. Talking to people one-on-one. Oh my God. Not, and like people I know I'm fine. But people I don't know, like having to make small talk, is maybe that's it. Small talk is what just endless amounts of small talk with people makes me want to die a little. And so afterwards, I just want to go home and sleep whenever that happens. So I'm like, if I have to go to an event, people are like, oh, you should go to this thing that's happening in Cleveland. And I'm like, will I be talking at it? Like, I mean, will I be on the stage talking to a crowd? No. Okay, I'm not going. And they're like, and they say that like, oh my God, you're so conceited. And I'm like, no, actually, I'm an introvert. That sort of thing drives me nuts. Like, I can't do it. I would much rather be speaking to a crowd of anonymous humans than actually talking to them individually every day of the week, right? So do the things that energize you and avoid the things that don't. And I know that sounds like counterintuitive. We are in a networking event. Everyone in here is like, networking, tiny paper cuts. It's so painful. Like, it is. But at the same time, we all are also doing, but we're doing a version of it that isn't painful. We're doing it right now. Like, I'm getting to know each and every one of you in a different way right now, because there's ways to do a lot of these things without hurting yourself. So our goal should be, how can I actually do the thing that I want to do the thing that's going to propel my business, do the thing that's going to make me a better career focused person, or a better mom, or a better whatever you want to be, without actually draining all of your energy and making you sad. Okay. And then after that, I want you to clarify your priorities. So we talked about priorities a second ago when it comes to mental focus, but at the same time, I think often we have maybe a list of priorities that aren't our priorities. They might be a list of shoulds instead of a list of musts for yourself, right? And so I do the 10,000 Small Businesses program. I think I mentioned that earlier. And one of the things that we do at the very beginning of the program, every cohort, is we have the cohort create a cohort culture. Like, how are you all, the 25 to 32 of you, going to communicate with each other? And in one of the cohorts this year, the entire group of people, multiple little groups of people got together and came up with the exact same answer without ever hearing each other say it. And that was that this is going to be a group of cans and not shoulds. So I can do this thing, not I should do this thing. This is an opportunity, not an obligation. And that was really useful, especially because the program is geared towards helping people see opportunities in their business for them to grow. And oddly enough, that could be really scary for people, and they can walk out of it feeling like, I should be doing this. I should be better at that. I should know my numbers better. Like they end up shooting all over themselves and making, like you just said, and they making themselves feel bad because they are like, well, this is, I just really don't, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. There's no supposed to's. There's no shoulds. What is it that you actually want? And when I say there are no supposed to's and no shoulds, I 100% believe that. I am not just saying that. We need to focus on doing the things that actually work for us instead of trying to do what other people think we're supposed to be doing. And I will say that and hopefully clarify for all of you that the majority of the time, no one is actually thinking about you. So when you think that other people think you're supposed to be doing something, the likelihood that that's true is extremely low, mostly because they haven't taken the time to think that critically about you at all. You have made up a story in your head about that person's perspective, and it is not real. And if someone is so bold as to give you a should, we know where that's coming from, right? Right. When most people give you a should, it is called a projection. They are projecting their own shoulds onto you. So again, it's still not about you. Because for the most part, people who are conscious enough to give really good advice will never tell you to do a should, right? They'll give you suggestions that you can or don't have to follow. Do whatever works for you. And then the people who are shitting all over you are likely not doing what they think they're supposed to be doing. And so instead, they're trying to get you to do what they think you should be doing. It's a whole mental nonsense. But in order for you to be spiritually aligned, clarify your own priorities. Don't let other people tell you what to do. Not because other people aren't helpful, because they are, but you still need to be the person who makes the choice in the end about what it is you're going to do. And then allocating your time to the things that are most important to you. One of my favorite examples of this is in parents taking their kids to school versus not taking their kids to school. So I have a few parental friends, lots and lots of them actually, and they all make different choices about this whole, am I taking this kid to the school that's around the corner, or am I putting this kid on the bus and they're gonna have to be on the bus for 25 minutes, even though the drive would be 4 minutes if I did it myself. Here in Ohio, we have mandatory busing. There's only mandatory busing if your school is more than like a mile or half a mile, something like that, away from the kid's residence. So there's a school district here in Cleveland, that in the Cleveland metro area, that built elementary schools. They have like 7 of them, so that no one in that city is more than a mile away from a school. They solved that problem so everybody could walk. And then after that, you know, they didn't have that. They just like resolved it really easily for themselves. But for you, then I'm thinking of my sister, my mom, who has a child who's 14. It was a conversation that we had to have about allocation of time. Is it worth it for you to get up and do all the work to actually be the person that takes this kid to school? Or is it worth it for you to take that time and do something else with it? And if you're choosing to take the kid to school, making sure that that choice is yours and that you're not doing it because you think that's what you're supposed to do. Like, this is the kind of weird little things that we do. Same thing about house cleaning. Are you cleaning your own house because you think that's what you're supposed to do? Or are you cleaning your own house because you can't afford a maid? Maybe you can actually. If you hate cleaning, believe me, they are not that expensive. And so like, I have hired maids for other people as gifts. And every time I do it, I'm like, I need to put this on my list of priorities for myself, because I personally hate cleaning. But I'm also very okay with my current level of dust in my house. Like, it doesn't upset me. But if it did upset me, then I would totally hire that out. Like, let somebody else do it, because it doesn't make any sense for me to be upset about something that I could just allocate that money time to someone else, right? So thinking about those things and really aligning yourself. I'm going to talk about worth for a couple seconds. I will say this spiritual thing, purpose and worth go very hand in hand. If you do not feel worthy, then this part of the conversation is going to wash right off your back. And what I mean by that is that your own self-worth might be getting in the way of you actually doing the things that you want to do, allocating your time, clarifying your priorities. You may not feel like you are important enough to state what your priorities are and do them. You may not feel like you are important enough for you to be the first thing that you take care of in the morning. I want you to disabuse yourself of that entire idea. Just being on the planet makes you worthy. This is it. That's the whole game. You have been born. You are here. You are worthy. Do not put other people ahead of yourself, regardless of whether they came out of your body or not. If you don't take care of yourself, all of those other things don't actually matter. They won't be taken care of to the best extent that they could if you're not taking care of yourself first. You have to be your own best priority in life. And of course, I'm telling you guys this, and you're already here doing it, right? So I want you to remember that, though, when you're going through this exercise, hopefully, and actually looking at these 4 areas for yourself. I want you to remember, if you're thinking, oh, well, I can't do that. If you feel like you can't do it, why? Why? Is it self-worth? Is it other people's judgment? Is it? Like, what's that thing? Because none of it's real. You absolutely can do it. Okay. So develop some rituals for yourself. Oh, I love this. I know another one. I want another one in the chat. Can you tell me if you have a ritual? What is it? Do you have any daily rituals that you do, daily or weekly? It could be a weekly ritual. You guys put in a lot of workouts that you do. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what your rituals are. So in the chat, tell me your rituals. I want to know what you guys are doing to take care of yourselves on a regular basis. What's your ritual? Okay, while you're doing that, journaling, meditating. I saw you nodding earlier when I mentioned 750 words. So apparently you have heard of it before, which is great. Quiet time. Oh, that. Afternoon walk. Oh, that's great. Okay, use your breaks wisely, y'all. Those 4 energy areas are going to help you to figure out where you might be a little off balance so that you can kind of pick up on those areas. But there are also like check-ins that we need to be doing with ourselves, which means that we need to be taking breaks and taking real breaks, right? And then finding your ultradian rhythm. That is really awesome to think about your own personal cycles. And when I say that, I mean just in the day. So the points of the day where you're at your highest, and the points of the day where you're at your lowest, and how those things cycle. Now, for me, I weirdly know I hit a 230 wall pretty hard, but sometimes that 230 wall is actually more like a 330 wall. It depends. It just depends on what I've been doing and what time I woke up. And when I say I hit it hard, like if I find myself in my car driving at around the time when I'm hitting the wall, I'm like, oh my God, I need to pull over and take a nap. Like that kind of tiredness. And I literally could have only been like out for an hour, not even an hour. I could be going to the post office and be like, can't wait to get home. But it's because I am in the low point, because an hour from then I will not feel that tired. It's not sleepiness that I'm feeling so much as it's just exhaustion. My body's kind of wearing out in that moment. What are those times for you? And then what are you doing to support yourself in those times? I am a huge fan of naps. Like, y'all, give yourself a nice 5-minute nap. I'm a power napper. I don't know. I know not everybody can do it. More power to us who can. Power naps are like the best thing ever. I can sleep for 5 minutes and move on with my life. But if you can't, that's fine. I wish it to happen to you at some point. But if you can't, what are the other things you can do? Is it another ritual? So you guys mentioned some really good ones. I love that. What's the real break? Rosalind. So all of that, the Bible coffee ritual, that's a good one. I used to have an English muffin ritual. That was a completely separate thing because I love English muffins. I still do, but I can't eat gluten, and gluten-free English muffins are not an awesome experience. And so, but I used to have an English muffin ritual with apricot jam. Oh my God, it was so great. A nice crispy English muffin, a little bit of butter and apricot jam. Husha, and my morning Earl Grey. It was a great time. But right now I have an evening ritual where every night at about probably 10:30, I make a cup of tea. And I probably, along with that cup of tea, will eat like a cookie or something modestly crunchy and sweet. So also we will do a rice cake. I do those little square ones that are super thin, rice cakes with some peanut butter and like some craisins or dried cherries and maybe a couple of chocolate chips on top. Just something that's like a little bit crunchy. I'm not a soft texture person. I'm a hard texture person when it comes to food. I love a good crunchy something. And I know for me, that's a stress reliever. I like to crunch. It makes me feel better. But doing that with my tea, goodness gracious, primed for bed right there, right? So whatever your rituals are, making sure that you're maintaining them. For me, that 750 words, I am on a 950-day streak right now for writing 750 words in the morning, because it is a ritual that I do no matter what. We go on vacation, I write my 750 words. I go to my sister's house to visit, I'm writing my 750 words. There's a kid jumping on my head. I'm sitting here, I'm like, you might want to move over a couple inches because I'm writing my 750 words. Like I'm getting them in, and I'm doing it because it helps me get mental clarity. Like I write those words and I journal out my frustrations. I also sometimes plan my day and figure out, okay, what is my priority? I literally do that every day. What is my priority for the day? I write that down and then I move on. I literally will say in my journal sometimes, okay, it's time for me to get up and move on, like, and go do my thing. So what's that rhythm? What's that cycle for you? Now, managing your mind is a whole separate category of conversation. So once we kind of get those 4 areas under control, I think one of our biggest issues is that we need to think about distraction, maybe more purposefully, right? So 47% of the time, people are lost in thought. That is an interesting statistic. And when I hear that, I think the word lost is the problem there, right? It's not that 47% of the time us thinking about things is a problem. That's not a problem at all. The problem is that we're not being intentional, right? So how can you manage your mind to actually be a little bit more purposeful? Mindfulness is one of the best ways to do it. So I said we're going to talk about meditation because it is one of my favorite topics. So let's talk about it. Meditation is not a single thing. It is many things. You can meditate by walking. So some of you have that walking ritual. You can use your walking time as meditative time. If you've heard of labyrinths were created as a walking meditation. So you can do a walking meditation. If you are a sit down with your eyes closed and be quiet person, do that. For me, I meditate like a crazy person. I actually have a blanket on me and I'm going to show you because I have no shame. So in the mornings, I have a blanket because it's cold. But this is just a perfect example of, I have a lot of boundaries. I do, but this is just me loving showing people things. Every morning when I do my meditation, I sit on my couch, I put my earbuds in to get my meditation music going, put my phone like away from me so that I can't feel it buzz, because I almost never have notifications on. So if it's buzzing, it's someone important. So put it away because I don't even want to talk to those people. And then I cover my head with my blanket and I sit like an insane person underneath the blanket until the timer goes off. And I do that. It's like a way for me to shut out all stimulation. I started doing it because I had a dog. And I would meditate and my dog would try to get in my lap because I had a blanket on my lap. And so I put the blanket over my head. If you've never done this with your dog, do it. It's hilarious. Put the blanket over your head, they'll leave you alone. And it's like you disappeared. So he was not a puppy. He was just an idiot. And so I would put the blanket over my head, he would go away. But it was fun because it also helped me to really focus on not doing anything for 5 minutes. There you go. So your meditation doesn't have to be this whole concept of accessing a higher spirit. I don't feel like I ever actually meditate the way that we hear about, like mountaintop meditation. But if I am really distracted, I'll do a mantra meditation. So if you guys have ever heard of that, it's the idea of saying a word or a phrase to yourself over and over again. I tend to do that in my head, not vocally, but you can vocalize your mantra if you want to. And then sometimes if I'm manifesting, if y'all, I'm a fan of manifesting, and I don't mean that like it's going to magic up. I mean, like I'm going to focus my intention on something kind of manifesting. And boy, oh boy, I have done that very effectively for myself, but it's again to focus my attention on something that I actually care about. So that's another way to meditate. So you can do all sorts of things to get yourself into a meditation mode. What is meditation for? Again, meditation is not so that you can be sitting on a mountaintop. It is really to help you focus on yourself and so that you can figure out what's going on with you. And that's probably why most people don't want to do it. Like, to be fully honest, is that we don't like talking about ourselves or focusing on ourselves. But 8 weeks of meditation will literally change your brain. The reason why it helps with anxiety is because it does decrease your stress reaction. So meditating in any format does this. It helps you to decrease your stress reaction, and it helps you to choose one thought over another. Start small. Please do not try to meditate for an hour. You can do it anywhere and in any way. If you saw me put a blanket over my head, do whatever works for you. If you want to wear an eye mask and earplugs, do that. Do it for yourself and for others. And I mean that actively, because one of my favorite memes on the planet is that there are people in therapy because you won't go. Lord Jesus, that is so true. I started therapy because of some people who wouldn't go to therapy, and I stayed in therapy because of some people who wouldn't go to therapy. I love therapy, and I do it for myself, and actually do go to therapy every other week, at least, and sometimes weekly if I'm going through a much harder time. But therapy is great, but also doing the meditation works so much. It works amazingly for helping me to just focus on the things that are important to me instead of trying to focus on, especially if that thing is you're doing it, you're going to therapy or something because of someone else's behaviors. Meditation helps you to redirect that so that you're not so focused on what that person is or isn't doing that is keeping you frustrated. Whew. That's some gold right there, because even therapy doesn't necessarily do that, but meditation can help you turn inward. Now let's take the last couple minutes to talk about time, because goodness gracious, there's only so much of it. We're not gonna get any more time. 69% of workers have difficulty focusing on one thing at a time. I think all 69 of those people out of 100 were women. We are out here trying to multitask. 25% trying to increase our time multitasking. That's not how it works. None of those things work. Multitasking is a myth. It is literally a myth. They have done studies on it. It does not happen. How do you improve your time? Schedule time for creative and strategic thinking. In the chat, tell me a yes if you have ever taken a solo retreat. Give me a yes if you've ever taken. Okay, I got a few people. Got Val. See my girl Val. You got Val, we got Amy. No, I know, no. Solo retreats are one of the best things you can do for yourself. I have done it multiple times. It's much cheaper than taking your family because they eat a lot more than you think. So if you go on a solo retreat by yourself, it's great. And if you go somewhere local, it can be very cheap. Like I've done a lot of staycations here in Northeast Ohio where I will get a cabin in an unseasonable place, right? So I get a cabin by the lake in the winter. It's like $100 for the night. You get this whole cabin to yourself, and you can, bring your own wine and, like bring a movie that you're going to watch for the evening, and then schedule in the time for you to just not do anything but think about your business or think about your life and think about Q4, whatever that thing is. Man, it's fantastic. And then I do short versions of this too. So sometimes I'll just go to the lake because I'm here in Northeast Ohio. I'm in Cleveland. Go to the lake and sit in my car for an hour. I'm not doing anything else. I don't have any other plans. I'm just there to think. So take that time to do some thinking. Of course, everyone says that mornings are the time to do thinking. That is not an accurate statement. The best time to do thinking is when your brain is most useful for you to do the thinking. So if you are a night person and that's when you get your most mojo, nighttime is the time for you to do your strategic thinking. If you're me, I'm a morning person. I'm a morning and night. I'm a split. And so I sometimes will take a whole night, like when I say go to the hotel and do the thing, I'll get there in the daytime and do nothing. And then at night, I'll be like, it's work time. And so like, but that's part of the point of being by yourself, right? So do it whenever it works, and then try to be disciplined about it. Mostly because that free thinking time is what makes the rest of the time more focused. Give yourself time, like schedule meetings. I love that, to be 30 to 45 minutes rather than an hour. One of my tricks is to actually do not this, but to schedule buffer time in between meetings so that I have time to do things other than think about like what I'm doing in the next meeting or the next conversation. So scheduling in intentional buffer time, and you can do this in Calendly. If you guys use Calendly, Calendly has the ability for you to schedule buffer time in between your meetings so that someone can't schedule if you are in a buffer zone or out like at the end of a buffer zone. It's amazing. Make time, me time, meeting time. This schedule gives me anxiety just looking at it, but only because the idea that I'm going to do anything remotely like this is crazy. I will have multiple schedules, but I don't actually put everything on like one schedule so that I can toggle them off so that my schedule never looks like this. Because I hate the idea of looking at my calendar and seeing it look like this. And yes, I do have other people. I don't have kids, but I said I don't have kids, but I also have kid stuff on my calendar because I have a little sister and I have 2 not stepchildren. And and so I really do have kid stuff on my calendar. I've got all this stuff going on. If I don't put stuff on my calendar, it won't happen. But also I do put time on my calendar for other things, right? I do not calendar my morning routine. So full transparency, that happens whenever it happens. But I do get up 2 hours at minimum before my first meeting. That's my way of making sure that I have the time. My morning routine does not take 2 hours, but I give myself that 2-hour buffer because it's going to take me 30 minutes to even realize that I'm alive after I woke up. So 30 minutes gone. And then that way, the rest of that time can be dedicated to splitting between the morning routine and maybe getting ready for the day if I have to leave my house for one of those meetings. So just thinking about that, that's my way of kind of scheduling my morning routine, is making sure that I'm getting up at least 2 hours before my first meeting. Do it however you see fit, whatever works for you. But make sure you have that me time in there. Parting thoughts. And while I'm giving you my parting thoughts, I want you to put in the chat what you got out of this today. If you got something, I want to know, what did you get out of this conversation today? And I do feel like we had a conversation. Y'all were chatting with me. I love it. So tell me what you got out of it today. My parting thoughts are: experiment often, forgive yourself for whatever missteps you have. So if you can't do your morning routine on this next Tuesday and you're like, well, it's all gone in the pot. No, that is not an accurate statement. Or if you find yourself, raising my hand here, if you find yourself in an entire quarter where you let your email rule you all day, every day for like 3 months straight, and then you wake up and you're like, oh, what did I even do this last 3 months? I didn't do anything other than what other people wanted me to do. Forgive yourself quickly, move on. Okay. Perfection is not required. There is more time. It's a renewable energy. Like more of it comes every day, right? So forgive yourself, because what is gone, and there is no more. That is it. It is done. Oh, I love this. Okay. So the root of all health is in the brain. The trunk of it is in the emotion. The branches and the leaves are the body, and the flower of health blooms when all the parts are working together. If your brain, your emotions, and your body are working together is when you're going to be at your highest. Again, sometimes your body is going to give you troubles, or your emotions are going to be an issue. But once you figure those things out, you can help pull the one that's not participating into the right direction. But you just have to have an idea of what those things are. Of course, I'm obligated to tell you something about Google. So there is more Go with Google workshops. Amy, if you can do we have any more things on our series? Okay, but go ahead and drop the calendar. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. Thank you all so much for chatting. I've loved every second of the chat conversation that we're having. It's been great. Thank you.
Yeah,
I hit 5 o'clock on the nail, but I missed it.
that's okay. You were so close. This was still amazing. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time, energy, and effort to keep doing this. And yeah, I'm just trying to pull up the Eventbrite, but my computer is being a little slow because I'm running Zoom. We'll have a follow-up email that comes out with this. So just keep an eye on your inbox. It'll probably arrive either late this week or early next week with the video recap, as well as the previous videos, which I shared earlier in the chat. So if you want to see any other workshops, and then we'll include the link to the future workshops as well. So yeah, thank you again. It was so great to see you again. And I appreciate you all joining us and sharing so much great sharing in the chat and being open and vulnerable. I really appreciate that. I love it. So thank you, Lindsay, for creating that environment where people felt comfortable to do so. It's not an easy task.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Well, everyone have a great rest of your day and we'll see you later.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.